Story. Hear a whisper utter your name. Don't respond. My followers were blowing up that week, all because I talked about the damn issue at my son Leo's nursery. I mean, it was a real issue, not just talking about what I had for lunch. I became a miniature celebrity in Galena. That's nothing to brag about, really. Our population hasn't even reached 4,000 yet. But it was nice to be noticed. Natty sat across from me in the armchair. She watched colored flames dance on the whistling logs. Unremarkable, mid-30s. The spotlight on her was dimming. I could see the thirst for attention, still twitching in her eyes, thinking on what to do next to recharge that light. Her willingness is the very thing that caught Rutten Arms' eye. Once Rutten is in, well, think of an itch so deep in your wrist that you constantly scratch it. Again. Your skin burns as it rips. You keep going. Again. It tears, slits of blood form. You keep at it. Dig, deeper. More blood shows. Deeper. Rip. Your fingers penetrate deeper. It still itches. I want it out, your mind screams. You thrust again, until you feel your wrist bones. Searching, you feel around until you think you found it. Rub. You give it a good showering. Pull it out and take a proper look, your mind says. You grab your bone and pull it out, inspecting it. You must get rid of that itch. All of a sudden, the itch is gone, dazed. You look at the wrist bone in your hand, dripping blood, ripped tendon fibers hanging off it. Pain rips through your body, overloading your synapses. Just before you pass out, you realize that it was all in your mind. That was Rutten Arms whispering to you. So I say to you out there, don't let her into your life unless you want to inspect your eye by pulling it out of your skull. I looked up at Natty. Black mist crept in on the ground, wispy, tentacles reaching out slowly. She didn't seem to notice, the mist gathering at the edge of the room. Next things, I'm getting emails from fitness and health brands to promote their stuff. A ton of new followers joined my channel from all over. The questions poured in about what I'm looking into next. Eyes wide, she looked at me. I didn't really have a choice. I had to find something. It had to be quick, otherwise I would lose them. She looked at her right hand. A deep black gash lined her small knuckle to her thumb. Only a thumb was missing. Rutten Arms. Nice fireplace. I wanted one like this for a long time. It was coming to me too, all of it. My brand was growing. I got a new business plan drawn up with my accountant. Within a year, if things go well, I'll leave my job and work on this full time. It would give me more flexibility to look after my son, and I'd be my own boss. It was a dream. All I needed to do was find decent real stories and follow up on them, she said, tapping her teeth with her finger. I searched the local news and found a local story. This wasn't as juicy as my son's school damp issue story, but it gave me an idea. The local hardware store was selling cheap drywall. A customer who had bought it had an accident. This could be a big health and safety violation, the type of thing my followers would love to know about, so I went and found the person who had an accident. His name was Derek Jones Sr. I vlogged each day to build anticipation. It was exciting. When I approached Mr. Jones, he was talking to his elderly neighbor, a woman late 60s. She had a lazy eye with a long face. It made her look a little odd. I guess age does that to you. Are you sure it was something not quite human, trying to look human? I said. Now, coming to think of it, she did look iffy. I could see Natty scanning her memory. That woman kept whittering on about vlogs and streaming, saying her niece does the same thing and she gets lots more views from live streaming and that I should do the same. Just to shut her up, I live streamed my conversation with Mr. Jones right there in front of her, and he shut me down so fast my head is still spinning. He told me to straighten up and stop spreading rubbish. The accident was his own doing. His sight is not very good, and he walked into a coat rail he'd asked them to install. The drywall was donated and fitted for him free of charge by the hardware store as a thank you for his service in the military. Natty twirled her auburn hair with her fingers. The black mist imitated her, its tentacles twisting and coiling like Natty's fingers. It was still entering the room, slowly. It grew darker. Only Natty had not noticed. Or she didn't care. Intriguing. Or was that someone else's influence? Had to see what was going on, so I popped into Hugh's coffee. DMs had shot through the roof. My followers were hating on me. Not all, but lots of them. My phone was still buzzing, every few seconds with more and more messages. I switched it off and looked at the barista, just for a break. Mr. Jones' neighbor was at the counter with another woman. She was telling her friend about a child rapist at a school. I didn't hear the end of what happened because they took their coffees and left. Natty looked at her shoe as she flexed her left foot. Black mist tentacles peeled towards her feet, low at the ground. What made matters worse was my sanctimonious neighbor, Smiley. He was waiting in his garden when I arrived home. He had this plastic grin on his face. That grin was the same even when I was a kid. Look at you playing a journalist. You should read some of these things they are saying about you. Now everyone knows what I've known for years. Why did you bother even trying? He shook his head. Make sure your son is on time tomorrow and keep his ball out of my garden. Smiley went inside. My blood was boiling. Smiley always gave me a hard time at school, and I'm pretty sure he's giving Leo a hard time too. Natty wiped her eyes with her fingers. It was all bombing. I had to do something. Mist tentacles morphed into 2 sets of shackles held by a black chain that formed from its particles. Natty still did not notice. I let her continue. Best thing to do was switch activity, so I went into the kitchen and started fixing dinner for Leo. He came and was sat at the counter like he always did when I saw the mark on his arm. He'd fallen in recess at school. The school's nurse had okayed it. It still looked puffy. Then it came to me as a whisper. I'm not sure where, but it was from inside me. Smiley did this. Natty grinned. For an instant, I saw Rotten Arm's face. Smiley hurt my son, and I had to make him pay, so I started planning his takedown. Everyone hates a bully. Tell the school he's singling out my son. He has a vendetta against the boy because of me, his mum. Yeah, that will work. I smiled to myself. No, I heard the voice again. That is too lenient for him. Make it worse. Add more. Add more. I thought about it. Oh yes, make him a child abuser. Yeah, that will work. Get him back. Get him back for the shit he has been stuffing down my throat for years. Yes, yes, I heard the voice. Natty smiled to herself. The next day, I went to my son's school and reported Mr. Smiley. 20 minutes later, he was suspended from school. 30 minutes later, it was on social media. A couple of hours later, the press hounded him, and it just got worse. Natty pressed her palms together as if in prayer. She flicked her eyes to me and smiled. Rotten Arm's face appeared merged with Natty's face. Miss me, gatekeeper? Not particularly, I said. Just to let you know. Oh, I know how you love your stories. Well, it didn't end well for Mr. Smiley. His school washed their hands of him. His neighbors kept their distance. And some enthusiastic locals threw bricks through his windows and painted horrid words on his front door. A few even left dog excrement on his porch. At least I think it was dog excrement. Could have been human excrement. Natty and Rotten Arm's face smiled at me. Dear Natty here is such a sweet gem. Rotten Arms, why would you come back here? Natty's face growled. Her face became feline. She lunged at me, but before she could reach me, black mist hand-shackled both her arms and legs. Her torso buckled, bending back and slamming her back in her chair. It's been ages. I wanted to pay a visit for a long while. Thought I'd hitch a ride with this one, Rotten Arm said. a voice leaving Natty's mouth. Have you forgotten what happened last time? Rotten Arm's eyes blinked. Natty's remained open. Her teeth rubbed together. She swallowed. Yes, you will. But save your threats about introducing me to the door at the bottom of the stairs, gatekeeper. I do not wish to go beyond the veil. Natty clasped her hands. I will tell you willingly, my gracious host, but only after you promise me safe passage back, Rotten Arms said through Natty's voice. You came uninvited. You are not my guest. So those rules don't apply. The shackles tightened around Natty's wrists and ankles. Rotten opened her mouth, but no sound came out. For the sake of this soul, I will permit you to stay for now, as my guest. Then you can leave. Safe passage, but only if you leave her intact. You have my word. I agree, gatekeeper. Entities like Rotten Arms don't normally keep their word, but as I have shown her grace by letting us stay in my home despite turning up unannounced, she is bound by laws that are older than both of us. I am too, so if she behaves, I am bound to give her safe passage. When did she invite you in? Why, gatekeeper? You like to hear my tale? How it really happened? Not mixed in with sobs and guilt, just straight up like a Grey Goose vodka? I crossed my left leg over my right and looked at the table beside me. A silver tray appeared with a chilled bottle of Grey Goose vodka and 2 short glasses. Beside it, a lime and a sharp silver blade that could fit into your palm. I could sense her watching me as I swiftly cut the lime in wedges. A few seconds later, I had poured 2 shorts. I stood and took one over to her with the bottle in the other hand. Rotten Arms quickly gulped the first and held a glass out for another. I poured and she gulped the second too. Taking the glass from her, I went and sat down. I knocked back my short. I put the glass on the tray and looked at Natty, Rotten Arms. It was easy, so easy. She hated that man. I whispered that I could show her a way. She thought it was her intuition, but it was really me. A word here, and Leo turned up to school with a bruise across his eye. When asked, he told his teacher that his neighbor did it because the ball went into his garden. A nudge to spread lies. Natty linked Leonard Smiley to a child's missing case. Social media trolls took over from there. His house was wrecked. Child rapist was painted on his door. Natty was best pleased with herself. Leonard Smiley got suspended from school. He couldn't even go out for groceries. The torment went on for months, fueled by Natty's followers. Police were called to Leonard Smiley's house by his sister. They broke to find Leonard Smiley dead. He had hung himself, not from the rafters, but wait for this, this is so cool. He tied his tie around the banister and his neck and hung. All he had to do to stop the agony was lean back. You want to know what was the most beautiful aspect of it all? Natty's face transformed fully into another woman. She was stunning, fair complexion, covered a delicate face with dark eyes and shoulder-length hair. Rotten Arms had taken the form of my wife. Are you listening, gatekeeper? Or do you like what you see? I remained still, looking at her, or rather, looking at the image of my wife. I got Natty to cut her own thumb off as a payment to her intuition. Of course, there was a bit of guilt in there for slapping her own son, but this one wanted more. She is willing. Why do you think she plowed her car into a blogger on the street, killing him and his friends, wrecking the restaurant behind them? She did this all with a live feed. That video went viral, and she loved it. Ha 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 ha. Rotten Arms laughed. My whispers didn't stop there. I went with her when she was incarcerated. I spent all day and night with her, whispering little nuggets here and there. And then, even when they did things to her, I kept talking. Eventually, she slit her own throat. This stupid filth was looking for a phone then too. She wanted to film and share her last breath. Oh, I can pick them, can't I, gatekeeper? Rotten arms changed back into two faces, merged together. She sat back in her chair. I threw the silver knife. It cut through the air and pinned Rotten Arm's face to the armchair. Natty got up, taking a few steps back. The shackles remained around Rotten Arms. She was fixed to my chair. Ah, Silver, you can't do this. You're breaking the old code, Rotten Arms screamed. Oh, I think you'll find that I can. You insulted me by taking my wife's form. Be grateful this is all I do to you. Don't you want to know why she invited me in? I am aware of when that happened. It was the first time you met her, when she came to visit Derek Jones Sr. Ha ha ha. I could hear her willingness across the state. Who is this? Natty said. I looked at her. Don't you recognize my voice, Natty? I watched as Natty's eyes widened. Her mouth fell open. She placed her palm on her stomach. Dear God, no. It can't be. Natty wiped her eyes. She looked at me, very composed for a person who had just found out that she had been duped by an entity into committing murder. Truth is, I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway. Why should they be more famous than me? Why? Natty shook her head. I turned to Rotten Arms, still pinned to the armchair by a knife in her face. Willingness began when you accepted, she said. I nodded. You'll be seen out. Do not return until it is your time. I pulled the knife out of the sofa. Yank. Black mist catapulted Rotten Arms out of my house. In a flash, she was gone, leaving Natty looking at me. What happens now? She was tapping a jacket pocket that hung just past her waist. She noticed me look at her hand without a thumb. You're still looking for your phone. It's an old habit. I know. I don't have it with me. A torrent of black mist rolled in, swirling around Natty. What's happening? Stop. Please, stop. Her cries were muffled out as it enveloped her. In seconds, she was torn from inside out. Her fabric blended with the mist. It glowed for a second. I saw her face, and then the mist faded away, receding back outdoors. I sat down in my armchair. The logs on the fires were cinders now. Before I go get some more logs for the fireplace, remember what I said about Rotten Arms. Don't ever let her into your life. If you do, good luck with that. What is she? I hear you ask. Are you sure you want to know? I will tell you that she is real. So the next time you hear a whisper call your name, don't respond. Double check yourself. Ask, who are you really talking to? Good night for now. See you next Sunday at 11. Godspeed.